Right, guys, welcome back. So yeah, as I said in the previous video, I'm going to quickly look at setting up the player object or the ball or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's not too difficult to be honest. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off, go into a scripts folder, right click, create C# script. Call this why not just ball controller? That works for me. Actually, I may even add a. There we go. So, ball controller. We got this. Let me double click and open it. See which screen it loads on. That's always the fun bit. Come on. Give it a second. I've got like a million things open at once. Actually, you can see I've got about a million things open at once. Where the blinking hell is this loading? Come on. I get impatient. Oh, that download's failed again. Every video that download's going to fail. I feel like I just need to turn that off, don't I? Right, here we go. It's loaded on this screen because that's super helpful. Right. So, I assume you can see this. I've got like a nice theme set up. So, just in case anybody didn't do what I did last time, obviously I put in a sphere, I added a rigid body to it. I'm going to delete the sphere. I'm going to add it in again because why not? It's not going to go in level assets because it's not a level asset, it's the player. So yeah, again, sphere, add a component, add a rigid body to that. I might even call it ball player just so we can distinguish it if our hierarchy gets a little bit messy. I might put that into the middle, which I don't actually know where the middle is anymore, to be fair. Right, apparently that's the middle there, so I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to put it about there. That'll do me. And we know exactly where it is. We know it's dropping. What I'm also going to do in this video is just do a very quick material for this because the ball's white, the background's white, everything's white. It's going to be a nightmare. So right, let's do some coding. Why not? I know how much everyone loves a little bit of coding. So to start with, we are going to define two variables. If you've forgotten, variables are the things we can keep referring to without having to constantly put a number down or put an object in, do the whole, or find this, be a nightmare. So the first one is going to be speed. That's going to be a public float because bear in mind, speed is a float, not an integer, because speed can be a decimal, whereas an integer isn't. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Integer, think score. Float, think time, because time can be that as well. So public float speed. We're going to have a private function, not a function, variable, which is going to be our rigid body. We don't want a rigid body 2D, and we don't want that kind of rigid body down there. We want the top one. I'm just going to call this RB. You can go with anything else. Probably a good idea to name them the things I'm naming them so you don't get confused further down the line. So, right, start function. What we need to say at the start is we need to go, right, this is the rigid body. So if we go to type RB, because that's what we've called it higher up, equals get component. Do one of them little triangles. I believe that's a less than sign. And then a greater than sign. Open bracket, close bracket, finish off with a semicolon. So what we're saying there is, right at the start, figure out what the rigid body is. God, that's my phone. I'm super popular. Listen how popular I am. It's great. It's probably just the bank. Right. I'm going to make a small change to this update function. I'm going to make it into a fixed update function. Slight difference, it just updates every frame or something like that. So instead of it being once per frame, it's a fixed amount as opposed to that, because the frames can differ, obviously. You can pull less frames per second, all that kind of fun stuff. Right, this is the easy bit, because this is going to be 4 lines of code, and it's going to work. There we go, Pablo Monkeys online in Skype. I really should record it on a different screen that doesn't get pop-ups. I have 3 to choose from. Right, so first line, we are going to go with float. We're going to call this move horizontal. Remember, camel casing is where you don't capitalize the first letter like there, but the second word you would do it, it just makes life easier in code because you don't refer to that anywhere else like that. Equals input dot get axis horizontal. Make sure this is spelt correctly, because if this isn't spelt correctly, it won't find it. This is an actual predefined variable in the engine itself, so make sure that's the case. Just while I'm typing these out, I just want to make a point as well. I've put FL there. I'm not going to type out the whole word float because it's done it for me. Don't be afraid to use what it already gives you. Obviously, things like this section, move vertical, we're defining something there, so that's going to be slightly different. It's not going to give you that option because you haven't predefined it. But other things like input, yet again, you can just work through these doing that, because you are not going to get a spelling error if you are using the predefined input.getAxis that gave it to me. You know what I mean? They're predefined variables, predefined functions in the actual engine themselves. Yet again, make sure this is spelt right. This is where I spell it wrong, isn't it? No, there we go. So we've got move horizontal, move vertical, and it references the axis for horizontal, the axis for vertical. So actually what this does is this finds whether you're using WASD or the arrow keys. It'll work with either of them. Or what we're going to use it with further down the line is I'm going to put an on-screen joystick and use that. But I'm not going to do it at this point. There's not really any need to, and it's a nightmare to try and test it on Unity using an on-screen joystick. It's just absolutely annoying. So yeah, we go. 2 lines of code down, 2 left to go. So this one, vector 3. You tend to use a lot of vector 3s as opposed to vector 2s because it's 3D. So with movement and all that kind of stuff, you've got X, Y, and Z to think about. Whereas you may have used to use vector 2 in the 2D project before. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call this movement. This is another variable we're defining. Equals new vector 3, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to define it as movement horizontal. We don't need to worry too much about the Y position because it's not going up and down, it's going forward, back, left and right. So if it was going up and down, that'd be a bit weird because gravity wouldn't be involved, it wouldn't be physics based then. So there we go, we've got 3 lines down, and the last one's so easy. RB, so we're referencing the rigid body again that we've defined here. We're going to add force, and the force we're going to add is movement times by speed. So it's going to get this here, and then it's going to times it by whatever we say the speed is for this object. And that's it, that's the movement. There's a lot more to go into the ball controller because there's a lot of things with collisions in this project. Everything that kind of you bump into, things like triggers, things like teleportation, things like, I don't even know, checkpoints. You hit them, the ball figures out you've hit them. It's a tag system, blah de blah de blah. There's more to add to this, but we'll leave it like this for now because we can, if I run this, we shouldn't get any errors. No, we didn't. I can't bother to attach it all up. Right, so there we go. That's saved. That's attached. That's all working. Right, so we got the ball player. Obviously, this doesn't currently have it. So let's attach this. Come on, stop being daft. I'll just add it via this. If I click play now, it's gonna do nothing because we need to set the speed. Anything if movement vertical, movement horizontal are both 4 million. We're still timesing it by 0. Anyone that's good at maths can tell me that anything times by 0 is 0. So let's put, now I'll do it quite slow, let's put a 3 in there. We've got to be careful here. This is where a lot of people could have gone wrong as well, because the world has its XYZ coordinates and you have positioned the camera in that world. So you may position the camera looking the wrong way so that forward may be left or right. I think I've done it right. Let's check. So if I press forward, yep, there we go. It's moving forward. If I press back, left and right. So you may be in a situation, actually I'll show you the situation you could be in. If I was to move this to 90 degrees and move it around to here, You're not actually able to see what I'm pressing to understand this, but still, I'll tell you. So from here, I'm pressing W for forward. It's gone left. And that's because of the world positioning. It doesn't relate to where the camera is. It doesn't know where the camera is at the minute. But that's a blinking nightmare to try and control that, because you don't actually know where the camera, where the ball's going. So let me just move it back to where it was before. So WASD moves around. As I said before, though, the problem here is that, well, it's white. It can get lost quite easily. Thankfully, the ball's got shadows on it at the minute. But yeah, so there we go. We've moved that around to there. And yeah, very quickly now, I'm just going to show you a material. So you can go in here, go into your materials, create, where is it, material. I'm just going to call this ball material. And I'm just going to, all I'm going to do to this one is I'm going to change the colour of it. So it's going to be a red ball. That's all I'm going to do for this. For some of the other ones, I'll show you how to do things like transparency and stuff like that, because you might want to be able to see through them, especially if the triggers. So yeah, I'm just going to add this. Let me just bring that down there. So that's where it gets defined. Put that into there. Look, we got a red ball now. It's a little bit easier to see on this white background. So there we go. We've got ball movement. We've got a red ball. It's something we can work with now. As I say, the next one I'm going to look into is about how to get from point A to point B in terms of levels. You know, can you get from here to here? And there's a level trigger there to move you on and so forth. But yeah, nice one. We've got that working. We've got a ball in the scene, moving about. The last thing actually I'm going to do before I move on, because we're going to have lots of scenes, so therefore lots of balls, I'm going to prefab this. There we go. Jobs are good, and that's all we need to do to prefab. It's now blue. Anything I change on here will now change on there. It's as simple as that. But yeah, nice one. Cool. Thanks a lot.